Hello and welcome to the test episode of the sports podcast to be named later. I'm Garrick Milbrandt, joined by
Garrick's dad.
Garrick's dad. How about that? Got a nice slate of sports news coming to you this afternoon. First, we got the Subway Series coming up tomorrow, the NFL schedule release, general European soccer wrap up, and any other thoughts we care to share. You ready, Garrick's dad?
Always ready, buddy.
Well, first starting off with the Subway Series. After winning only one of their first 6 games, the New York Yankees will hop on the subway and take the quick ride over to Flushing, Queens for a 3 game set against the 18-25 New York Mets. The Yankees' patented summer woes could be coming a touch early this year with the offense largely disappearing in Milwaukee and Baltimore, and the injury bug has been sweeping through the Bombers' locker room once again, with recent injuries including Ben Rice, Jose Caballero, Giancarlo Stanton, Jason Dominguez, and now Max Fried. Dad, do you think this is the Yanks' summer slump coming early or just a normal bad week of the MLB season?
Look at it like a bad week. I can't see this as the sustained sort of a thing. We just gotta, of course, see where it goes. But the injury to Rice, he seems like he's right back in the lineup. Had a home run last night, so we're not so worried about him. Good news on Free just seems to be like it's a mild elbow bruise, so we're not looking at Tommy John, nothing with a UCL or anything like that there. Of course, those injuries are coming down the road, but Domingos was just called up and went right back down, so he was there and gone. We're never going to miss him. So, we'll keep an eye on these next couple series because the next few series are going to be difficult ones for them. But if they come on through it, I don't think we're looking at the swoon just yet. Let's wait for mid-June for that.
Yeah, harsh words for Jason Dominguez right there. Spencer Jones did get his first RBI of the season. We're looking forward into the future from where we're supposed to be right now, but that's okay. It's our show. We can play with it. But yeah, Spencer Jones got his first RBI of the season. Hit a comebacker off Clay Holmes' tibia. Fracture right there. Schlittler and Holmes were just at target practice last night.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with them just being magnets for baseballs coming right back up to shoot at them, but that's just bad luck that can happen to anyone. Just lightning struck a few times last night.
That's baseball. Projected starters for the Yankees are Cam Schlittler in Game 1, the season debut of Carlos Rodon in Game 2, and now Elmer Rodriguez in Game 3. Weathers has been bumped to the first game of the next series against Toronto. Now, there have certainly been issues with this lineup so far this season, but pitching really has not been one of them. I've really enjoyed what Weathers and especially Schlittler have been able to accomplish so far this campaign, but the biggest storyline to me this series is getting Carlos Rodon back in the Yankees rotation regularly. Dad, what are you hoping to see out of Rodon this season?
You know what? Honestly, I expect to see the normal Rodon out of Rodon. However, these first couple starts back from a injury are always a crapshoot. So when I look at the matchup with him and Brazabon going against him, I'm seeing a guy with a high ERA. He gets touched. So if you're going to come out, you're going to fortunate to give 5 innings if things go well, but you've got the kind of pitcher that you can touch. So another thing with Elmer coming up on Sunday with Peralta, again he's got an ERA comparable to Weathers. So I'm thinking of the 2 games that are remaining in the series. I'm looking at that one as possibly the one where if we're going to get got, it might be there because Peralta may have enough to keep us down. And I worry about Elmer getting too deep into games. He seemed really amped up in that first one. He was yanking a lot of pitches. Got to keep that heart rate down. That's going to be hard to do in a Subway series.
Yeah, definitely. With Elmer Rodriguez, I've liked his stuff so far, but he just seems very, again, you could tell it was his first couple starts in the league. The control was really an issue for him, but everything else did look pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, he's a kid. So what I've learned from watching prospects over the years come up, they're always suspects while they're prospects.
So now moving on to the NFL schedule release. Again, the NFL just taking over the news headlines when it's not even in season, but it makes sense for the NFL. That's how the media works. So you can't swim upstream. Earlier this week, the NFL released the schedule for the 2026 season, and our teams took very different paths last year, but come into this campaign with some dreaded expectations. You always hate to see that. The Chicago Bears have been handed the hardest schedule in the league by opponent record last year, and Las Vegas doesn't have a walk in the park either, playing every team from the previous AFC and NFC championship twice in Denver. So, Dad, what do you see for the Raiders' future in 2026?
We talk about expectations. I'm glad that my expectation is just not to be the worst team in the league again. So I'm riding on house money. So when I looked at the schedule objectively, I'm looking at a high ceiling of a 9-8 and a bottom where I would be disappointed at a 6-11. I always like to start out with them splitting the divisional games. However, there are some traps in there I'm looking at. So I'm looking at the things I dislike with this schedule, and what hit me right off the bat is both divisional cold weather games are happening late in the season, which watching the Raiders for 40 plus years, I know what they look like on East Coast 1 o'clock games, and I know what they look like in cold weather games. So we got December 20th, we at Denver, and January 10th at Kansas City. This puts a lot of pressure on them winning those early games of the season where they're going to have to play them at home. Those home wins are going to be very important for them for those two games, and that's what might swing that 9-8 more toward the 6-11 if they can't hold the home field. Um, and I look at the two most winnable games on the schedule. I'm looking at the Jets and Cleveland in Week 8 and Week 12, but they're both 1 p.m. starts. So I don't have the stats in front of me, but just again, from 40 years of watching Raiders football, you go back to 1 o'clock starts on the East Coast, they are abysmal. And also, Cleveland is happening late in November, so we're another possible cold weather game going into Cleveland. And things to like about their schedule, there's not a lot to like, but you got to look for the silver linings where you have them. So, looking at the Dolphins week 1 and the Saints week 3, you got a realistic shot to pop out 2-1. Now, if they miraculously somehow go on the road and beat San Diego week 2, there's your 3-0 start. But realistically, I want to see a 2-1 team to start the season because then they're more on that 9-8 trajectory and not the 6-11 trajectory. So especially when you're coming off those first 3 games of 2-1, because they're in for an absolute crucible after that, where they're probably going to lose 6 of the next 7 games because they have Kansas City, they have a 1 o'clock in New England, they play Buffalo, the Rams. There's a winnable game against the Jets, then the Niners, the Seahawks, and the Broncos, all in a row over a 7 game stretch. So they'll be really really fortunate to not have a 3-7 record after 10 weeks. So um, look for the positives in the front end and pray to God for the middle.
Well, that's how it's been. When you have all those dreadful seasons back to back to back to back, just getting over 500 does seem nice. And you are showing your age with San Diego right there. Oakland against San Diego twice this season. Moving on to the Decatur Staley schedule. Start off the year in Carolina. Decent matchup, I think, there. Panthers took control of a very weak NFC South last year. Again, but I don't know what to expect out of the Bears this season because you had no idea week to week what was going to happen. It was the greatest show on grass last season. It was so fun. Win or lose, it was going to be insane. But you kind of have no idea where the baseline for this team is at because they can sink way below it and soar way above it. So I don't really know where they're at yet. Give them another season with Ben Johnson. Give them another season with Caleb Williams taking regular reps and just getting the guys in together. They got a system you can believe in, got a team that you can rally behind. I hope all for the best for the Bears this year, but, don't hope too much.
What spooks me with that team, kid, last year they won every close game.
Yep.
They won every pull a rabbit out of your hat game that there was to win. They didn't lose a one of them.
Against some not good teams either. The Cincinnati Bengals and the New York Giants come to mind the most. Really needed a couple miracles to win those games against bottom feeder teams in the league. But they also have the tenacity to go out there and take 2 or 3 against the Packers, one in a wild card game, and they straight up beat the Philadelphia Eagles on Black Friday at their place. Again, I'd say the only 2 teams we straight up beat last year were Cleveland and Philly. So,
And that's quality win against Philadelphia. And I'd also like to thank you for the miraculous comeback win you had against the Raiders, which more or less secured Fernando Mendoza for my team.
that
So
too, good
I'll
point. The
tip my
Raiders.
cap to you for that.
And we have a common opponent, a couple of them, because we do play the AFC East. It's the NFC North matchup of the AFC East this year. So there are some good matchups and some bad matchups. I say 2 wins and 2 real tough games. Week 4, we host the New York Jets. Again, team Geno Smith looking for his second straight first overall pick.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get it. The Jets are not a very threatening team.
You're a good team. You beat the Jets.
Yep. And week 14, we're in Miami. But quick turnaround after that, week 15, we're up in Buffalo in their new stadium. Have you seen the new renovated stadium?
I have not, but I'm looking forward to it. Check that out after we're done here.
Very interesting looking. And also week 7 against New England. And we do play the AFC and NFC champions back-to-back weeks on a Thursday and a Monday. So the NFL schedule creators are really throwing a wrench in the Bears' plans this year, but good teams overcome that.
I want to prove it.
And also released on Thursday was the slate of international games with a record-breaking 9 regular season games being played internationally. The NFL will be heading to Melbourne, Rio de Janeiro, London, Paris, Munich, Madrid, and Mexico City this season. The Rams and 49ers have a nightmare assignment for Week 1, in my opinion, kicking off their season in Melbourne, Australia. In addition to the logistical issues of just getting over there in the first place, they'll be playing in a cricket stadium. So fans sitting along the sidelines will be just miles away from the action because it's a circle shaped instead of the regular rectangle rectangle that we're used to. So, do you think these sacrifices for the teams and fans are worth it for the expansion of football?
What it always comes back to for me is this is great for the NFL brand. It's tremendous for business. It is god awful for football. One of the things that I've not minded about it as a fan to this point is that they typically get not restaurant quality games sent to them when they go overseas. However, this year these games are far from dog water. We look at the Rio de Janeiro game. We got Baltimore and Dallas, Melbourne, like I said, San Francisco and the Rams. In Munich, Detroit and New England. Again, Detroit, the bounce back year, that could be a very marquee game coming up. So the international broadcasts are definitely starting to take a little bit of thunder away from the home side of things, and I look at it the same way of course, with my wrestling references. When you take a WrestleMania to Saudi Arabia, it's great for expanding the brand, but you are really truly alienating your fans at home. And I think this 9 game slate is really starting to push it for the patience of the American fans, for the patience of the players who are making these trips. Um, until you can create a NFL Euro division, which could be in the next 10 years, who knows? But right now, I think this is about maxed out at 9 games. It's kind of getting to my threshold of being able to enjoy it.
And just because there are good games being shipped overseas doesn't mean they didn't leave a few stinkers out. The Paris game, the Pittsburgh Steelers against the New Orleans Saints. For the Parisian football fan, I'm not gonna. That's not gonna put many butts in seats, in my opinion.
And you know what? I'm not complaining about that because we're just sending the brand. We're not sending our top shelf over to them. Obviously, when European football comes to play on American soil, teams are sending over their C squads. They'll send over 1 or 2 of their regular starters, and they'll send over some filler folks just with the jerseys on to put on a show for everyone. That's what I kind of see international games as. So those other 3 games where it's a little bit less sexy, I'm all about it. But when you start putting the marquee games on foreign soil, I really think it's a slippery slope for the American fan.
Now, I do like it that at least they put the Saints in Paris. That makes sense with the Fleur de Lis in the logo. I do like it. Now we'll transition from the NFL to the no fun league of European soccer, as the Bundesliga season has once again been wrapped up for about a month at this point. It's April 19th, it's May 16th when we're filming, and Bayern Munich, who could have guessed, has won the league for the 13th out of the last 15 seasons. But that hasn't stopped the Bavarian Giants from being in the headlines as 40-year-old Manuel Neuer has signed a 1 year extension to come back for his 16th season with the club. Obviously a legend for club and country, but this year's got to be it for Neuer, right?
Well, I'll circle back a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and out you for being raised a Bayern fan, becoming a Bayern fan, holding in there with Bayern, dressing up as Frank Ribery for Halloween one year as a little kid, and then just for some reason getting pissed off at success.
Well, it's good no one's going to hear this.
It is. Maybe someday they will. I want this to happen. But yeah, obviously rooting against Bayern Munich is like rooting against the sunrise. But you know what? If teams in the Bundesliga hate it that much, put a team on the field to beat them. That's what it comes down to. And you know what? Teams have done it before. We had the undefeated RB Leipzig team that came along years ago. That won the cup, didn't go undefeated, but they
Leverkusen.
ouch. All right,
Yeah, we're even.
we'll take care of that in editing. But then Dortmund's usually knocking on the door a lot of the times. But yeah, again, it's unfortunate that okay, we call it the Farmer League or whatever you want to call it. But when Byron does go on the big European stage, they will hang in there with the big boys. They are constantly in quarterfinals and semifinals against all the best teams in Europe. So okay, the league they come in, they dominate. But when they go outside that league, they are just as good as anyone else out there. But circling back to Neuer, we've talked about this a lot of times over the years, but I've had the fortune of growing up as a Yankees fan and as a Washington Capitals fan, and I've seen the career of Mariano Rivera, I've seen the career of Derek Jeter, I've seen the entire career of Alex Ovechkin, and what you do for these guys who've done so much for your organization, you give them that extra year. It always happens. Um, Looking at Neuer's resume, he's brought a World Cup to the country, 13 Bundesliga titles, 2 Champions League titles, 2 Super Cups, 6 German Cups, 2 FIFA Club World Cups, and 8 German Super Cups. The guy's never going to pay for a beer again in that country. But so, is he still Manuel Neuer? Absolutely not. He's Manuel Neuer on the field with the jersey, but he's not quite the guy he once was. But for the 15 years that he's given to Bayern Munich, all the accolades, all the cups. you give them that one last run, and hopefully not at the detriment of the team. They can look at the field right now. They can tell Bayern Munich is again the class of the Bundesliga. I don't think they're going to risk losing the league next year with him in net. However, when we start to look at European competition and see what PSG just carved him up in the Champions League, at that level, after next year, I do think it's time to look into some development around him.
I'm really glad you mentioned the concept of the Farmers League and especially PSG because PSG in Ligue 1 is considerably, such as Bayern wins it every single year. You can wind your watch by it. And how has PSG done on the continental stage, particularly against Bayern?
Very well. Team kind of has your number. Team has your number, right?
Yeah, and Tottenham's best game of the season, I believe, was a loss against PSG in the European Super Cup right at the start of the season, up 2-0. They come back within the last probably 15 minutes of the game and take it on penalties. That's about where the season kind of dipped for Tottenham. And as talking about Tottenham, we'll head across the English Channel to up to the English Premier League, where it looks like if the fight to win the championship and avoid the championship, funny thing there, will likely come down to the final day. With 2 games left in the season for Arsenal, they lead Manchester City by 2 points and will host Burnley and then visit Crystal Palace, while Man City will head south to the south coast to battle Bournemouth and welcome Aston Villa on the final day. And the relegation battle is eerily similar to that, as Tottenham sits 2 points clear of West Ham in 17th and 18th place respectively, with 18th place getting the drop in the Premier League. And the Lilywhites will be staying in London to play Chelsea and hosting Everton, and the Hammers will be heading up north to face Newcastle and hosting Leeds to end the season. And just a very non-threatening name for Tottenham right there. Did you know their nickname was the Lily Whites?
The Lily Whites.
The
No, I did
Lily
not.
Whites.
But I think it is a fun thing that, having gone through the season as Tottenham with you, that pretty much sums it up when you've outed their best game of the season as a loss. So I do feel for you this year. That team, all the potential in the world, and by God, they just stink.
It's been a genuine issue for Tottenham over the past couple seasons because when I got my foot in the door as a Tottenham fan, it was the 2017 season. Next year they go to the Champions League final against Liverpool, losing one of the worst games ever played. That was visual IBS. That was pretty bad. But it's been all downhill for Tottenham since then. Once Mauricio Pochettino left the club, it was just a revolving door of managers coming in, maybe staying 2 or 3 seasons here. Um, Antonio Conte was in for a season or two, and then just a constant revolving door of coaches in there. 3 coaches this season. Have you ever seen a team have an interim manager?
I've come close with the Raiders and the Knicks over the years, and I'll tell you what. I'll preach it to you right now. You are a fan of a blue blood team in a league, and nothing is harder than watching a blue blood team play like garbage and just have bad luck and a constant revolving door, and just seems like they can't find their way. Soccer is better. The Champions League is better when Tottenham is a good team, and I'll stand by that. It'll come again, but you're gonna have to earn it now.
Now, I really like that you said that because the international fan and even the British fan has this perception of the big 6 clubs, that being Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham. There's a squeaky wheel on that shopping cart. Tottenham has the perception of this club that is a blue blood and can convince people and think they're blue bloods. They play in a multi-billion-dollar stadium. The NFL plays a game there every season. They have so much money for transfer fees. They have this pedigree of a club, but they have nothing to actually back it up. Look back historically, even Tottenham recently. Again, I'll be honest enough to out my team as this. They've conducted this psyop on the casual fan to just to think of them as this big club, and they have finished below mid-table in the past 5 seasons, and really not a whole lot of historical success in before that. A couple European championships in the 70s, an FA Cup in the early 2000s, and a Europa League last year. They're the New York Mets of the Premier League. And people don't think of it like that because they see the big club, they see the big transfer fees, they see the big players coming in, and they just don't get results. You know who else does that? The New York Mets. They throw billions of dollars around. They bring in Juan Soto, they bring in all these players, and it just can't be done there for some reason. It hurts me to compare my team to the Mets, but that's who they are.
What's funny is, of course, there's no cameras on us, but you saw me pretty much wiggling in my chair with a big grin on my face as you were talking, and the only question I was going to ask you was, oh my God, would you even think of comparing Tottenham to the New York Mets as your comp team? And
That's what it
kid,
is.
you nailed it right on the head because they think they belong, they think they're this big team, but really they're just little brother. And yeah, because I refer to them as a blue blood because casual Champions League or Premier League fan here, you hear the six teams that are the big ones, and they're the ones you expect to be one of the top teams, and you just don't really do the deep dive and understand. But again, being a fan of the team, you know the history. So again, they always bridesmaid, but yeah, they look the part, but they just can't play the part. It looks like.
Yeah, it's just an interesting ride as a Tottenham fan. I wouldn't say it's fun, but it's certainly interesting. Any last thoughts before you wrap this first episode up of the sports podcast to be named later?
One thing I would love to do, and way too early, and we're allowed to change it anytime we want,
Oh,
but some
yes, yes.
way too early Super Bowl predictions, because Super Bowl predictions are like armpits, right, Garrett?
Yep.
How's that go?
I think everyone's got one and they all stink.
Yes, and we've got them too. So for me, looking at it, I look at the NFC and it's tight and everybody's very good. But I am going to look at the Rams to be the representative from the NFC in the Super Bowl. And I look at the AFC as almost impossible. There's just mediocrity everywhere you look. No one is complete. You look at a team like Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, who seem to be having narrowing windows. Then you've got these upstart teams like New England, Houston, or Denver that all have a shot. I would say any of those six. So I'm just going to roll the dice and say why not in this year and say how about Buffalo? So Rams against Buffalo. I'm not choosing a winner until I know what's better, but we'll revisit this again in August sometime and see if those things change with the trade windows happening. What early June? So some teams will have some reshaped rosters, but right now I'm thinking Rams Bills will be mine.
It was very interesting how you changed the everyone's got an armpit thing for the PG-ness of this fake program.
You can totally go hard. Come on, bro.
But would you know that the Asian population makes up a very large part of the human population, and they do not have the glands in their armpits to have body odor. So everyone does not have a stinky armpit.
It sounds like you're, putting limits on people.
Well, they just physically don't have the glands to make sweat like that. Yeah, so retract that statement. But for my way too early Super Bowl prediction, I'm going to go with my heart, and then I'm going to go with my head. My heart, oh man, I would love to see a Bears Raiders Super Bowl at some point in my life. It would be like Mad Max in here. It would be crazy.
I'll be collecting Social Security, but yes, I'd love to see it too.
Now, realistically, the Rams again, they're your smart pick again. Maybe going back to Seattle, that team they're going to get the Super Bowl tax, obviously, but the team is still going to retain a whole lot of talent coming into next year, and they're just the clown car coming out of the AFC. Again, you'd love to say Buffalo. Yeah. There's no reason it shouldn't be Buffalo, but it's Buffalo. It's Tottenham. It's the Mets. They have it, and it just something's always going to go wrong. And the Broncos too, bringing back a lot of that defensive depth, but no one really knows how Bo Nix is doing with his ankle right now. And you take Bo Nix out of that team, you put Jared Stidham in that team, they're completely useless. They can't.
I thought a year ago we'd be talking about Bo Nix as the linchpin that's going to set the Denver Broncos to the Super Bowl, but here we are just 1 year later.
Because defense wins championships, but you also need to score touchdowns every once in a while, and they just couldn't do that against New England. Now, maybe that being one game in a snowstorm, sure, but I don't think Jared Stidham or really any other quarterback that you can grab off the bargain bin right now is the long-term solution for that franchise. And just specifically, I watched a couple Broncos fans on YouTube talking about Bo Nix's recovery really not going to the schedule that a lot of people set it at. Again, not a lot of people even knew he got injured when he got injured in the divisional round against Buffalo. That was actually Alex Smith's leg. If you saw that, it was like the really messed up one. You could see the skin of it.
So I was fooled again.
That was fake. Man, really putting on a show here on the sports podcast to be named later. That was Alex Smith's leg surgery recovery. It was his ankle. It doesn't look that bad. It's still not great. It's not to the people it's like a mystery injury. It's like they had a timeline for it. It's not really going that way. They're being very secretive. Sean Payton, not a big fan of the media, so he's kind of keeping it close to his chest. So I go. Sure. I go Denver out of the AFC because I think they had a really good run at last year, and I do love my good defenses. And, it just looks like Seattle or LA again. I really don't see another NFC team stepping up and taking one of them. I'll go Seattle for differences. We'll go Denver, Seattle.
Okay. And then we'll revisit that in August, see if we change our minds.
We'll see how we're going, and we'll revisit you soon on the sports podcast to be named later. I'm Garrett Milburn.
I'm Gary's dad.
And we'll see you later.